Today we're going to talk about wearable user experience. As you know, Qualcomm have very vested in this space and been doing a lot of discovery. And one of those important discovery elements has been actually talking to consumers and understanding what they want out of the wearable space. I'm sure you're aware we don't pretend to have all of the answers. Not even consumers, we're finding, have all the answers. They have lots of questions. So my great pleasure to introduce Jeannie Keating from our user experience research team, who's going to give you some of the highlights of the findings that we've had so far. And then we very much want to open it up to Q&A and get some thoughts from the audience. So without further ado, over to Jeannie. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm hoping you're having a good conference so far. You've probably been to a lot of sessions where they tell you how to build apps. Well, in this session, we're going to talk about what apps to build. We're going to talk about drivers and users' needs. Okay, thank you. Drivers and users' need that, from the consumers that will make them want your apps. And we're talking about this in the wrist-worn wearable space. And at the end of my talk, we'll do a Q&A, so start thinking about questions as you go along. Now, smartwatches are not just a second display for your phone. The same way that smartphones were not just a PC shoved into a handheld form factor. The apps that developers like you built for smartphones became the key experiences that defined what smartphones are. Your dedication to designing uniquely for mobile means that there are now apps that are there are functions that are easier to do on the phone than on the PC, and certainly there are games that are funner to play. And you did this by experimenting with the things that were unique about smartphones. This is the knowing what the user is all the time. This is a ubiquitous camera. This is keeping them connected to their social network like they've never had the opportunity before. Now is your chance to do that same thing for smartwatches, to help define what this category will be by designing specifically for the wearable experience. So let's work together on that and continue a discussion throughout the year on the Qualcomm Developers Network to help define what smartwatches really become. Our research shows there is no clear roadmap as to what this space will be. And consumers themselves are still exploring wearables and still determining what they want and expect from the category. This is the most personal device we've had to date. People think of their phones as part of their identity. Well, this is even more so. Both it's intimate to you and it is a big statement to people around me about me. So the interactions and opportunities here to do things that people would have never thought of doing on the phone. The old rules do not apply in this category. The expectations are still rising. And to inspire you that, I want to share with you some of the research that Qualcomm Technologies has done from our early entry into the space and our ongoing quantitative and qualitative research we do with users to understand how they're using smartwatches. We are seeing three wearable smartwatch categories arise. First is the smartwatch, and then is the fitness tracker, and then dedicated devices like we're seeing in the medical space. These are usually closed environments. So where you're going to have the biggest impact is going to be in smartwatches and the fitness trackers, and that's what we're going to dive into today. There's also a fashion piece to all of this that goes across all of these devices and has a big impact there. So we have found consumers currently use these two devices, trackers and smartwatches, for different use cases. There's different reasons they put them on, there's different reasons they look at them, and there's different reasons they take them off. And actually, some of the users we've talked to have both a smartwatch and a fitness tracker, and that really helps us as researchers pick apart what are the differences between these two. So let's dive into smartwatches first. First, I want to talk to you about how currently, in this very first iterations, users are using the smartwatch to connect with their phone. These are notifications, alerts, things that used to come to your front of your phone that now come to your watch. So these very connected experiences. And for these connected experiences, we find there are two major drivers that determine how they use the phone versus how they use the smartwatch. And these drivers are their context and how convenient the relationship is, how convenient the phone is to them. So for context, there is still times when it is not socially acceptable to pull the phone out of your pocket. When you're having a one-on-one conversation, when you are in a business meeting. These are times when a smartwatch allows you to more discreetly track what's going on your phone and just vet for important notices that make you want to pull that phone out. So we're seeing a lot of usage in these cases. Additionally, when your hands are full or busy, so you are carrying the groceries, you are taking care of a child, the smartwatch is more readily available to check and even at that point read text messages. So that's context. Now for convenience. That wouldn't be the right button. There we go. For convenience, it has everything to do with how close the phone is to you. If the phone is in your hand or on the table or desk in front of you, users generally go to the phone directly and don't look at the watch. But when the phone is not kind of out of that immediate reach, but nearby, in your pocket, in a purse, in a backpack, this is when the the watch starts being used to vet when to pull out that phone. Now, the real interesting cases are starting to arise when the user is away from their phone. So this is, I'm charging my phone by the front door, and I am upstairs in my house or moving around. I am gardening, so I didn't bring my phone out with me. I left my phone at my desk in the office while I went down to the printer. In these cases, your smartwatch starts being the primary interface that you're dealing with. It becomes your primary device, and this starts building a trust relationship that gives hints as to what will happen in the future as users learn to think of this as a primary device, and also as we develop more and more for that. Things we're seeing in this case is a little more replying to text messages, taking voice memos. So it's an exciting space there. So let's get into our smartwatch personas. So what we did is interview a lot of different people and found that they could be categorized in these 4 different personas. And personas are design tools. These are for you to think about when you're designing your apps. And as we talk through them, you'll see that they each have different needs. They each have different drivers, different things they're looking for. And the way that you're going to reach out and draw them to your apps is going to be different for each one of these. So that, yeah, feel free to take a picture because that is a takeaway tool I hope you use a lot. The first one here is Nicole. And she is 50 years old. She's a working mother. She bought her smartwatch because she needed discrete notifications to communicate from her kids. One of her bosses said, "There are no cell phones allowed in my meetings." But Nicole is in meetings all day. So this left her feeling insecure about, are my kids locked out? What's going on? So now she got the smartwatch so she can glance and watch those messages come in and quickly reply if it's, I finished my homework, can I play the Xbox? Or know when to step out when there's a real emergency, I've locked myself out. She doesn't respond to everything right away, right? But she feels more secure knowing that her kids are okay. Now, I love Nicole because this is not the face of our typical early adopter, tech adapter, right? This is a user with a really strong need that wearables can uniquely fill. And now that she's wearing that smartwatch, I'm going to bet that you as developers can find other needs for her that you can solve. And there's so much opportunity to fit into her world. And other developers may not be thinking about her, so keep her in mind. Next is Mike. He's the tech-savvy 45-year-old. He's much more of our classic early adopter. He went online, compared all his smartwatches, picked the one with the best technology. He is currently updating that device every 2 to 3 months, replacing it as the new technology comes in. And Mike tries everything on his watch. He'll try it several times, and if it's useful, he'll keep it. Other people go to Mike when they have questions about technology. They will be asking him which device to buy, and they will be asking him what apps he uses. He's an influencer. If you provide Mike with a new experience, he will try it. And if he likes it, he's going to tell others about him. So Mike continues to be a key persona. Then there's Wendy. One of the interviewers, here's my key story that sums up Wendy. So our interviewers went out to people's homes and talked to them for 90 minutes. And for Wendy, in a 90-minute conversation, her smartwatch alerted her 60 times. In every time she glanced at it, it was 40 to 60 times, depending on the user, yeah. She would glance at it every time. So we had to ask, how about the number of alerts you're getting? Is that okay? And she said, yes, that's about right. As long as I stay connected, that's the important part. So she's getting about the right amount of alerts. You cannot annoy Wendy. You cannot alert her too much. If you are coming up with information that Wendy wants to know, you will have her engaged with your app every several minutes. So she's a really good, heavy user. Now, another thing about Wendy is she really cares about aesthetics. She wants her watch to represent her style. She feels like this is a social device, and its appearance should be part of that. So make her look good. The watch screen is outward facing. All of you can see that right now better than I can when I'm talking to you. So make her look good there. She likes to share. What can you give her that gets that across in her real world? Okay, Richard. Now, Richard, as a user, as a researcher, is a very exciting user. Richard hacked his device. And when we see that, we know that's usually an indicator of a strong need that's not being fulfilled. So I'm trying to remember all he did. He hacked to control his stereo. He has an app that controls his TV. He created an app that actually controls his lights, and so when he'd enter the room, they'd come on. When he'd exit the room, they'd go off, which turned out to be really bad for his wife that was left behind in a dark room. So he no longer uses that one. But he is working on getting his front door to automatically open when he approaches it. Richard is really exploring what wearables can be as a ubiquitous interface to everything around him. And this is a wide open space, and I think very, very exciting. So I hope to see a lot of you play in that space. So if we look at the current smartwatch use cases, the primary cases you see here don't contain any real surprises. This is time and date, which is basically being a watch, and then alerts and notifications and reminders. It's these connectors to the phone that we talked about. The secondary cases are starting to get a little more interesting. This is the control things around your control things on your phone. So your music, picture capture, actually working the shutter on your camera by using your smartwatch. And also controlling things in your home. So the TV, the stereo, the thermometer, this ubiquitous interface to everything. We also saw voice memos, which hopped up pretty high here. And what that was is people were giving themselves quick reminders. Call the wife at 5, buy groceries on the way home. This hints of wearables as an extension of your own cognitive memory. Yeah, it's always right here. You always have it with you. What can you offload now? And I think that's exciting. What you also see is there's pedometer, heart rate. These are beginning to be on here, but currently secondary. But these could grow if you find ways to make that data more meaningful. And that's a good transition into our fitness tracker talk. So to wrap up here, this is a short list. It's beginning to be diverse, but we are convinced that the killer apps for smartphones, the killer experiences have not yet been developed. So you, the developers in this room, can add to that list and to help define what these smartwatches become. Now, if we look at the smart fitness trackers, they know a lot more information about the consumer. I define this track, they are defined by the growing number of sensors on the device that tell you more and more about your user. For instance, so that is an exciting opportunity for apps. It's a lot of information you haven't had before. You use that hand in hand with what you know about people on the phone, and you've got an opportunity to give people really meaningful, actionable data back to them. For instance, people were excited about sleep data. However, after a few weeks, they stopped sleeping with the device. They felt this data was meaningless. There were no actions they could take from it. One of our users said, this means nothing to me. I don't want to spend time looking at these marks, trying to figure it out. Just tell me what it means. You can't tell me that I haven't had good sleep all week. Thanks. That makes me feel a lot better. But what you can tell me is, I slept better on that one day when I worked out. That's an insight. Okay, there's something actionable I can do here. If I work out, I can improve my sleep. Let's try that. The second part of that is continue to look for those data and trends, because this needs to grow over time. As soon as I learn my behavior, I work out, I sleep, I get it. I don't work out, I don't sleep, I get it. Then I'm done with the device, and I stop using it, and you stop being able to affect and improve their lives. So keep looking for these connections across all the sensors in the phone, all the information you're getting. I'm picking on sleep data, but this really applies to all the data in the phone. Pick out what is meaningful, find trends that would allow actionable results from the user. That's going to make it interesting. Okay, let's go to that's our happy user. He's got information he never knew before about himself. All right, here's our smart fitness tracker personas. Meet Mary. Mary's 40 years old, and she has a very specific goal in mind. She wants to lose weight for the end of the year party. Mary is self-motivated, and she wears her tracker all the time. If she leaves home and forgets her tracker, she turns around and comes back and gets it. Mary tracks her food intake, and that's important because that is the only persona I'll talk about all day that does track that. Tracking food intake is very difficult. A lot of the other personas would love to track that, so if you could find a way to make that easier, people do really want that. Since Mary's been wearing her tracker, she has actually changed her behavior patterns. She has started taking the stairs instead of the elevators. Developers, if you can recognize and reward these positive behavior changes, that's huge. Mary deserves to be rewarded every time she changes a behavior pattern for the positive. Provide her with these reachable intermediate goals based on her progress. Don't immediately compare her to the nationally recommended amount of steps, not yet. Work her up from where she is. Keep in mind that Mary can be both discreet and social about her goals. On the discreet side, we found users that were sewing little bracelets to slip over their trackers to hide them, or going on Etsy and buying jewelry that hides them. And the reason for that is Mary feels if she, on our breaks, decides to reach for the cookie, or if she pushes the elevator button instead of taking the stairs, she is not inviting feedback from anyone around her about that. You don't want her commentary like, I don't know, Mary, you may not need that cookie. No, that's her own business. She doesn't want to share there. But she will share online. She will share with groups of like people that are working on the same goals and are at her level. So give her that connection discreetly. Don't put it on her top screen what's going on, but let her access that more remotely. Now, Stacy, she's 50 years old and up, as our Stacy's. And this is our data-driven athletes that are concerned about their overall health. She has soft goals, like training for a marathon, and she is a hardcore athlete. She wants to track all her activities, and she currently very often wears dedicated devices to track these different activities. She does a triathlon once a year, so she likes to bike, swim, and run every week. She wants detailed statistics, her heart rate, her route mapping with distance, altitude, elevation, speed, cadence. Stacy likes to compete with herself. She wants accurate data. So one of our users hacked her tracker to turn off the accelerometer data when it came within range of her Bluetooth from her car. Because what she found was she was getting credit for false steps while she was driving. And she doesn't want false steps. She doesn't want to just see that number go up. She wants that accurate data. Developers, you can engage Stacy by providing her 3 stages of data analysis: during the workout, after the workout, and her once-a-week deep dive. She wants customizable dashboards that she can really dig into once a week and understand. And she doesn't mind really seeing the data and spending a little time in that once-a-week time to understand what's going on. But she also needs glanceable data while she's working out, glanceable data throughout the day to let her know how she's getting how she's doing towards her goals, and actionable data during her workout. She's got to have that peak heart rate. You are in your working heart rate range, always at hand for her. She loves gamification. If you can gamify her workout so that she can compete with herself and others, she will love that. On the other hand, there's Joe. And Joe is 32 years old, and he needs motivation. He has no particular goal. He just would like to be more active. He exercises maybe monthly, and he does not move a lot when he's at work. Without a set goal, it's very easy to lose Joel. If Joel's dressing up, wants to look nice, which he does care about fashion, Joel will not wear his tracker. He feels it doesn't look good enough to be in his fashion regime. And if Joel forgets his tracker at home one day, he is not turning around to go get it. It's staying at home that day. Developers, Joe is harder to engage. Joe needs and welcomes reminders throughout the day to move, as long as they're not too intense. Let me know what I can do, but don't intimidate me too much. He enjoys reminders in recommendations for what he should be doing, and he definitely does not want to post his status socially. That's not him at all. So for Joe, see if you can help him move and change things up, keep him interested. He needs that motivation from the outside. That's going to have to come for Joel. Unlike Tom. Tom is always active. He's in his 20s, and he wants to look good. Being active is part of who he is. It's part of how he sees himself. He was already active long before he got his tracker. He runs about 6 miles a week. He bikes, he cross-trains, he hikes for a hobby. Exact numbers don't matter to Tom, but his goal is to maintain and improve his fitness, endurance, speed, strength. He also wants to know when he's at his working heart rate. Tom is comfortable sharing some of his fitness stats, basically around personal best. Tom would be annoyed by reminders. So as a developer, Tom does not want reminders. He's very self-driven. But what he likes, again, is gamification, and he loves to hit new personal bests. So how many different aspects can you give him? How many awards? How many combinations of his speed and his time and his heart rate and his activities can you get him? He will eat those up. So that's how you're going to keep him engaged. Track all sorts of aspects of his personal best and let him know when he hits them. If we look at the current SmartTrack use cases, you'll find, again, the primary cases are basically as expected. We're tracking aspects of our activities. But the secondary cases here start getting really interesting. I think this is a more interesting step because of there's some more sensors and things you can do on the tracking set. There is water intake. See, Joe would love water intake as a goal. It's an easy goal for him, but it's still really hard to put in entering in water. So only Mary is going to track that. If you can make that easier, I think more of the personas would love it. There's some interesting things happening with route mapping, this in social sharing. This started as a way to see what routes other people did and how well people did on your route. And it's turned into this entire social area where people are drawing pictures on maps. So I go running in a smiley face pattern, and then later people can bring it up and go, smiley face across the city. Cool. Which is surprising, something I don't think was intended by the developers. So this is one of those ones where you put it out there as an experiment and see what the users make of it. Now, one of my favorite examples of that is the haptic alarms, which comes high up here on the secondary list. And what this is originally is it's just a notification that lets you know I set an alarm on your watch, on your phone, and now it's going off. And you just get a little vibration. What users have turned this into is a very personal alarm clock that wakes me up in the morning without waking up my spouse. And that's huge. That's a huge new benefit. And that's something they didn't even know they want, but now they have it. They love it. That makes an app sticky. You're fulfilling a real need. And that's really one of those, throw it out there and see what they do with it. Oh, we only go so far. And this one, also I like the haptic alarms because it is made possible by how intimately coupled these devices are with your body. We haven't had devices we slept with before. So this is the uniquely wearable experience, and it's showing out just a hint of what we're going to be able to do with this. So I encourage you to add to this list, to fit a wider range of users, to help motivate people, to keep them on track to their goals, and to feel good about their fitness and their wellness. So let's continue to work together and keep this conversation going through the Qualcomm Developers Network throughout the year to help shape what these wearables will become by listening to consumers, testing new concepts with them, and by continually creating and iterating these experiences. that are specifically designed for wearables. Experiences that take advantage of the new sensor data that is unique to wearables, the new closely coupled connection the users have with these devices, and this pervasive glanceable access consumers now have to your applications. Then let's meet up here next year and show off together what we have done to shape the wearables category. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask a few more people to come up to help me with Q&A. First is Susanna Ariano. And Susanna is Qualcomm's researcher, Qualcomm Technologies researcher that was the lead on the interviews we did in homes. Along with Ben King and Jill Ayahuasca, she led the team to perform those interviews. I'm also going to pull up Paul Nicholson and Matthew DeHamer. Together, they direct product marketing across Qualcomm Technologies wearables innovations. So if we can get all their mics turned on, I think I'll come, then we can open up for questions. Now, if you have questions, walk up to the mic in the center of the room. We are taping, and it makes sure everybody can hear it, both in the room and on the tape. So are there any questions? Thank you. You can line up here if you want to. Hi.
Any thoughts on putting cameras onto those smartphones?
Yes. Okay, so there's some in the market that have. Oh, in case you didn't hear it, are there people putting cameras into the smartphones, smartwatches? And yes, there are some on the market. There are probably more coming. Suzanne, you want to comment what people are doing with that camera?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. So we saw, when we did the research, we saw a variety of things people were doing with the cameras. And it wasn't a primary use case. It was a secondary use case, but it was mainly taking quick captures. We saw people that were taking pictures of their spouses or their kids when they were doing something funny. And it was, if they took out the time to pull out the phone, they would have missed the shot. So it was mainly the advantage was that quick capture. And it was also, they were very concerned with privacy, so they were only taking pictures of close friends, indoor shots, dogs, objects, and things that were not going to overreach any privacy concerns.
I think not necessarily based on research, but based on kind of observations of people using those things is, yes, there are cameras, but since most of these people, most of the devices that do have a camera are a tethered experience, meaning you're having a smartphone in your pocket. So it has to be something that's very serendipitous, something that happens very quickly. But also, I don't think, right now they've just literally ported a camera and put it on your wrist, right? But there's no experience around it. So, they started just putting cameras on phones at first. It was like, okay, I can take photos. But then you had people like Instagram and all these other filters and all these other things to do with it. And that's great on the phone. You have a big screen. But what is that experience going to look like on the watch? What's the justification for using my watch versus something else? And I don't think that's been developed yet. So I think there's opportunities there that just haven't been explored.
Yeah, and as we all know, when we started putting cameras on phones, the vast majority of those photos stayed on the phones until there were use cases and apps and other things to then share them. So to Matthew's point, okay, you've taken the picture, so what? What am I then doing with it? Am I sharing with it? Putting it onto another device.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very personal device. It has a lot of information that are very personal. And the smartwatch, except the talk, most of the smartwatch don't last more than 1 day, so you need to recharge it over time. But today, when you recharge it, maybe in the office, and it starts to be sharing a lot of information, notification that you may not want someone else to pick up, right? So do you see this need from people you research where they wish there was some kind of code or biometrics, something that keep it safe when it's not on their wrist?
Yeah, and I think as with all things in wearables, the answer is yes and no, because there is such a wide arena there. Certainly in the focus groups I've sat in, there are some people who are very passionate about that topic, and indeed enterprises are now starting to struggle with what do we do with wearables. I can get my work email on here, IT department haven't woken up to all of that. So we really are in the same field that we were on smartphones years ago, and there won't be a one-size-fits-all. We're going to probably use that phrase so many times here, because some people are going to be very passionate about it. I don't want people to be able to, take that watch off my desk and go and integrate and find out what's going on, etc. There'll be others that, no, I'm fine, I never take it off my wrist, and I don't want the hassle of, I'm fed up with PIN numbers. Well, my life is surrounded by PIN. I've now got to do it on here. This is too personal. I don't want to, So there isn't going to be a right or wrong answer. There's going to be different use cases and different sectors within the market that we'll have to solve for somehow.
What are the things?
Yeah, and to add to that, from a research perspective, I agree with your comment. I want to add, though, that the users will not give up the convenience, even though they're concerned about privacy. If you put a password or anything, something like that, that reduces the convenience. They care about the whole purpose of the watch is to be able to quickly be able to get that information. So I think there's a trade-off there. We did ask some of our users about the privacy concerns, and although they were concerned about things like email, contact information, or other things they were concerned about, they weren't ready to give that up. They weren't ready to add a password to it for the convenience of it. So, I think that there's yet room to explore there, to give them that privacy that they desire, but to also have that convenience that they very much want on the watch.
I thought one of the interesting things out of that study was there came to be two different types of privacy. One is security, which is keeping your data secure from strangers. Have you been hacked? And then the other is what they consider privacy, which is my mom shouldn't know who I'm texting. My spouse doesn't need to know everything on my everything on my calendar. And we thought that was interesting. And what turned out is they're not too concerned about the stranger. So when it came to what their heart rate was and their all this personal tracking data of themselves, they weren't too concerned as long as nobody knew that they defriended one Facebook friend or something. So there's still an interesting game there in the mentality of the users and what kind of data we're getting on the devices. And I think that's yet to prove out.
I was wondering, in the users you've talked with, have you seen any demand for being able to respond to messages and enter text?
Yeah, certainly personally, I find the capability of doing quick replies, and now we've put voice recognition in there. I'm amazed how much I would use it. I was always thinking, but there are so many instances where you've got your phone in your pocket and you really don't want to go in. So it's more than I thought it was going to be, and I think consumers likewise are going to find that they do more things from here than they were originally thinking, including instant replying back.
So reaching for your phone is actually a frustration that people are looking to get rid of.
Absolutely, yeah. You find these people are like, I'm fed up. I keep pulling this out of having to pull this out of, or not knowing where it is. Right, the whole generation's growing up with this phobia about, did I put it down? Is it in my bag? Is it? I just want to chill and be able to just simply.
And I think anecdotally, wasn't it people on average pull their phones out of their pocket and check it like 100 times a day or 100 plus times a day. And a lot of that is very simple stuff, right? Some things are important, like work. If the boss is emailing me, I need to look at that. But if it's simple text, there's a lot of back and forth. If you look at your history of text, there's a lot of back and forth that's very simple conversations that can be achieved either through a quick reply or through a very simple, voice-to-text, dictated message. I only based on, research of one myself. I mean, there's obviously times when the phone is more appropriate, but there's also times when you're moving and you're going and you're busy and there's other things going on, and it's just way more convenient to just use this. And the nice thing about that is that the kind of technology behind doing voice transcription and things like that is so far advanced because they've been doing it on phones for so long that the trust factor is there, right? You know that you're going to have a pretty high percentage that's going to get transcribed correctly. If this were like still the early days and it was really poor, I think people would probably be like, no, I don't want to do that. But because we have all these personal assistant apps on all the major platforms, I think there's a high confidence.
So I actually have to ask a question on that. How many of you do use the microphone as an input instead of the keypad on your phones?
On your phones, yeah.
Yeah. If you're not doing that, you should try it. It's gotten amazing, and it learns over time from you. Give that a try. You may never be typing again.
One specific topic of interest I
Yeah.
have is about using the data you got from the phone, from the watch as a kind of a behavior modification.
Yeah.
I think you already gave some example like exercises, and other more examples can be given. Suppose your calorie input or sleep pattern with regard to your heart condition or weight, and then a lot of things can be done from the data you collected and doing correlation to derive some kind of advice over these things. Are there feedback from your users on this aspect?
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest opportunities there are out there for somebody to really nail doing that very well. We are gathering a load of data, and that's just from wearables. I mean, as you see devices and sensors going on to, I'm a very keen golfer. You're starting to see golf training sensors. There's even now a tennis racket with a sensor built into the handle and all that kind of stuff. So the opportunity for real detailed analytics from all of that and bringing it all together. So what is mapping your heart rate to your swing, to your, and weather conditions and, all of these sensors coming together. But the critical point, as mentioned before, is the so what? What is the learning? I don't want to have to go through all of that. I want some very intelligent software algorithms to be throwing up to me the so what. So from analyzing your last three golf rounds, you're slicing it off there. Think about a club with a higher face on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think those possibilities are endless. I mean, as we get this data, there's so many different areas that we could affect that we don't know yet. I mean, we're just starting with the low-hanging fruit of, I see you're jogging, now you're jogging faster.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's a good study. Basically, when you did this study, right, were you able to find any statistics of what percentage of persona is more prone to buy a device?
So it's interesting. When we started looking into wearables, there's not that many wearables out in the field yet. The trackers more so, but not so much in the wearables. So it's still playing with that market as to seeing what we can get out of that market. The kind of data we decided to go after with this study was let's get to know very deeply the people that have bought them. So that's what we have. So that's where we concentrated. So I don't think that I have that exact answer.
No, I mean, and any sizable quantitative study that you did on that by the time you published it would be out of date by definition.
Yeah.
Okay, my intent is to find out, I mean, there is going to be a different set of users. If I'm going to develop an app, which set of user I need to target first?
Okay.
So that I can quickly make
I think
a
that's where the personas really,
Yeah.
I mean, I think quite rightfully we didn't put any numbers behind those personas. They are just really to inspire you to think about, even in the space of fitness, there's 5, 6, 7 different kind of groupings and different peoples with different needs. And think of the consumer that way. Try and envision that person. Try and draw a picture of them. Try and think about their background and what they do during the day, because those will inspire you to come up with ideas for apps. Just little nuggets that we were picking out just by doing that exercise, I think very, very important.
And I think as far as are there more Marys or more Joes, I think those they're growing in spurts and in different rates, and at any moment you check, you might find them different because is it Tom that really goes out looking for new devices, and he's the only one going out looking for new devices. Everybody else is kind of discovering them because a friend gets one. So I don't even think that breakup is clear yet, and I expect it will change every month as new devices come out and as new apps come out. It could change rapidly.
I see. Okay.
So you can make that happen if you get one, if you really target one.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, so first I want to thank you for this session. I must say it's one of the most interesting sessions I attended in the last couple of days.
Make sure you vote on the,
on
the app. Feedback in.
I tried, but there's no app for the watch.
No, next year.
Yeah.
So next year's a wearables uplink feedback. Right.
Talk
Who's
to
an
me
app
then.
developer can develop that for us?
Yeah. So my question is, since these devices are obviously handy and very, very personal, did you find any desire to use them as means for authentication? For example, opening the house door, logging into the PC, payment, and so on and so forth?
Absolutely. I mean, do you want to speak?
And if so, do you plan to, I don't know, cater to these needs somehow, because there are some security requirements that should be addressed and so on?
Yeah, I mean, we did see a lot of it, and from the research perspective again, we did see a lot of users who were interested in the authentication. And the interesting part about that is that none mentioned the issue about privacy. They thought they would be connecting to things that are close to their phone, and that when their phone is not nearby, then that the connection wouldn't be a problem, and that they would be secure as long as it was near their phone. But I mean, you do see the Apple Watch. You see the other devices that are concentrating on authentication. Authentication has been one of the primary use cases for the watch from the initial research that we did, and I think there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of want there. I think it's just it's all up to you guys to really come up with those applications that are viable for our users.
And I think one of the most exciting things I saw, so at CES this past year, using like Talk as an example, by enabling like all join, the kind of Internet of Things protocol that Qualcomm has in that open source project, it was allowing the watch to interact with these other devices. And it's not just authentication, but it's about like what else is around me and what other products that I have. Mm-hmm. So we have like a smart home, and we were showing like you can walk in and by using proximity and knowing that you're in that area, it's like, okay, well, my watch knows that there's an air conditioner that's a connected air conditioner. So it's like, are you comfortable? Yes or no? Do you want to change the temperature? Yes or no? These are very simple interactions that bringing them to the watch makes a lot more sense than walking in the house with a bag of groceries and sweating and going like, okay, now I've got to like fumble for my phone, or, it's little kind of special, I don't know the term, but it's those little interactions, or like you said, walking up to a smart door lock and things like that, and being able to use proximity to open the door without having to pull my keys. So yeah. I think that you'll see wearables blow up, and like the search for like what that killer app's there, and then you'll see wearables being integrated into this larger smart home like ecosystem as well. So you're just going to see this area just kind of expand very rapidly. Mm-hmm.
Quick questions and answers time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, exactly.
Quick questions and answers.
The nice thing about AllJoyn is that it knows what product is what, and it has its own control panel, right? So if it's an AC, it's like, temperature up or temperature down, right? But if it's a light, it might be on or off. I mean, yeah, so the context in that whole thing is going to be very important to wearables. Yeah.
Well, we've got a couple more minutes left, so thank you. Last question.
Yeah, maybe I have another questions. So is going to go Qualcomm support the voice UI for Qualcomm's smart watch? Whatever the reason is, yes or no, what's the reason?
Sorry, what's the question?
So are you going to support the voice UI? For example, can you use voice or sound to control the watch?
Voice from the Talk.
Yeah.
Does Talk support voice UI?
Yeah.
What is the support that it currently has?
Nuance, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, in the Talk Watch specifically, we partnered with Nuance. Like they're the ones that are doing the back end processing of that. But in terms of just broadly, like, is that the direction that Qualcomm is going? Is relying on voice? No, I mean the answer is like we're looking at all opportunities, all different means, whether it be touch, gesture, proximity, voice. at some point it could come down to eye tracking. I mean, like the possibilities are endless, and Qualcomm is an enabler of technologies. So we want developers to help come up with use cases, and then we can customize hardware and solutions to make those things happen together. So I don't think that we know the right answer. We're looking for other people to feed those ideas in, and then we'll help develop that ecosystem together so we can all succeed.
And again, it changed over time, right? So, when I first had this, no way am I going to go around doing the Dick Tracy thing. I mean, I just felt that was, but I now find myself doing it, and I'm perfectly comfortable doing it. So I think, you've got to get the right consumer at the right place at the right time. And, I think we've all got to just be careful about what are those things that are going to put people off, to make sure that they're not, and they're brought into this experiment with us, and voice their thoughts.
Okay.